Welcome to the Why Music podcast, where we talk to independent artists about their journeys, the inspirations behind their music, and ultimately why they make music. This next artist is one half of a London-based duo. With their backbone coming from fingerpicking and harmonies, they've reinvented folk rock in a whole new way. With only a handful of releases over the last few years, only time will tell where they venture next. Welcome, Hannah, aka Gecko and the Bee.
Hello. Nice to be here.
Nice to have you. I always like to start with where your journey with music all began.
Oh, that's a good question. My journey with music began, as I'm sure lots of musicians is the same, with my family. I come from a very classical music family, so I grew up playing the violin in lots of orchestras and things. And then I went to uni and studied music, got really into like intense electronic, kind of like Kelly Lee Owens kind of stuff, and thought maybe I might go down that kind of avenue. But I'm from the countryside, and so I just end up making really soft folk music. It seems to be what comes naturally to me the most. But yeah, that's probably how it all began, really.
So, from how did you take the route from starting in such a like classical background to move into like more folk and start writing songs and stuff like that? Like, where did that transition sort of happen?
That transition sort of happened when playing in orchestras can be very it's very rigid. It's beautiful and it's great fun, but it's very rigid, and I think I needed a kind of different kind of outlet musically, because I never played music in school. That was never my thing. It was always like a outside school thing. So my dad used to be a big punk rocker, and he always had his guitar hanging about, and so I just picked it up one day and just started teaching myself how to play through YouTube. And I just thought, oh, this is quite similar to the violin in the way that it works, and I just kind of just went on from there. Really just thought it was amazing, because I found it more free than the violin.
Did you find it easier than the violin, given that there's actually markings on where the different notes are? Because that's the one thing about like stringed instruments that have always just like gone over my head. It's like, how do you know where the note really is if there's no way to actually, like, there's no marking on there, there's nothing telling you, oh, here's where A is, here's where like C sharp is. Like, you're just kind of winging it almost. So did you think that was almost, it made more sense?
It does make more sense. The violin is definitely not very forgiving. Like even now, so I've been playing my whole life, and even now, like you're always listening and you're always changing. So you're right. Like the guitar is so much easier to know where you are. But the issue with the guitar is when you're playing live, you can't always. The microphone isn't always in the right position, so you try to look down, but then you can't sing and see where you are. It's always a bit of a challenge.
That's fair. That's fair. Do you think that you incorporate any of your like violin roots, if you will, in like the stuff that you write now? Like, do you think that because that's where you started, that at all influenced the way that you write, or do you incorporate like the violin in any of your tracks and stuff like that?
I think I'm starting to include the violin more now than I have done, but I think the way I've had people, because I've taught the guitar myself, I've never had a guitar lesson.
Mm-hmm.
I've had people tell me that the way I play guitar is strange. But I probably subconsciously do it, but I wouldn't think I don't consciously do it, but I might. There's probably something going on in my brain space that's doing it.
um so at what point along like starting to write music and stuff like that, were you like, okay, I want to put some of this stuff out, I want to like actually like start like putting music, like releasing music, being an artist, performing, etc., etc.? Where did that sort of leap come from?
Gosh, it's I'm not really sure. I think the wanting to perform I've always had from an early age, always wanting to be on the stage, but absolutely terrified to do so. like for a long time I was like absolutely terrified to be on stage, but I would go to gigs and watch people on stage and think, wow, I want that to be me. I want to be up there. Like that must feel amazing. That must be awesome. But I think the time came to put out songs when I think I just had so many, and I just thought I need to do something with these, and I just thought, well, I'll just put them out.
Mm-hmm.
But back then I was so afraid. I think when you first start doing music, you're very precious about what you put out, and you want it to sound perfect, and you might love it, but it's like this newborn thing that you have, and so you don't really share it around or tell people about it. You might just like plop it online and hope that maybe no one sees it or a million people see it at the same time. It's a very strange feeling. But I think now, as I'm much more confident in myself and who I am as a person, I think that's just what happens as you get older. My self-confidence in myself is stronger. So I just think, why not? I've got nothing to lose. If people don't like it, they can sod off, you know? I love it. So that's all that matters at the end of the day.
That's a good way to think about it. And I think that's something that a lot of artists could have more of, like perspective wise, because you get a lot of them that are just, you get very perfectionist about it, and like you said, very precious about what you wrote. Like it's like, I wrote this, I want it to like then you get the people that just like want to do it all themselves, and it's like, you at some point it has to just be done. And that's the hard part with music, is that it being so subjective, it's hard to know when a work is truly completed, because you're not achieving a certain result, you're just kind of polishing it up until it sounds okay. And so you kind of have to have that perspective of like, it has to be done at some point, you have to be happy with it at some point, and you have to just kind of put it out there and let the people who like it, and the people who don't can screw off, as you said. So that's all there is to it. And that's because it's like, really, what harm does it do just to throw it out there?
Exactly. You've got nothing to lose.
Nothing to lose. I like that. So as you're starting to write all these songs and they're just kind of existing, and you're like, okay, what do we do with these? What made you develop your artist project in the way that you did with the name? Has it always been that way? Is that like, where does that all come from?
Yeah, it's quite sweet actually. So my best friend, who I live with now, growing up, she's always called me Gecko. Apparently I've got green eyes, and apparently I do this like gecko face. I don't really know what it is, but she's always called me that. And we used to drive a lot when we were like in our early 20s to different parties and up and down the UK to visit various friends and stuff. And there was a bee in the car, and she pointed at me and she went, "Oh, look, it's Gecko and the bee," and pointed at the bee. And I just thought, then I was at home in bed that night, and I just thought, that's actually so nice, because I never wanted to use, when I was starting out, I never wanted to use my name because I didn't really know what I was starting or where it would go. So I wanted something that could be literally anything. And as I evolve, I mean, I'm now a duo, like as we evolve as a band now, like who we could be literally anything. We could turn into anything. And I really like that kind of separation between, like, I wouldn't want it to just be my name. I feel it's just not, it doesn't feel right to me in my heart. So that's where the name comes from. It's quite sweet and quite funny.
That is probably one of the better, like, origin stories that I've heard. So do you think that kind of goes hand in hand with your whole, like, just put it out, like, who cares, like, because you're kind of, like you said, like, you're able to separate it from yourself, being that it's a separate entity, it's not all under your name. Do you think that being it's a separate thing, that kind of makes it easier to just be like, I'm putting it out, do with that what you will?
I think definitely, because I think about all the people I know from school who I don't talk to, and I come from a very small town. They definitely know what my artist name is, but I like to think that they don't know. So those people can never find me, but other people in the world can find me. Yeah, you're probably right, actually. I'd never really considered that, but yeah, I think you are probably right in terms of the separation. That's probably very good observation, which I've just realized.
Hey, whatever it takes, it works.
That's
As long
it.
as it works, it works.
That's it.
So at what point in your, like, pursuance of this did it go from you to being a duo?
So I moved to London about 3.5 years ago, mid-pandemic, which was a crazy time to move here. But I moved here, and when everything opened, I was just gigging on my own, like, constantly, maybe 4 times a week, sometimes 5. I didn't have much work then, so I was just like taking every show that I could get, playing to a room of maybe 2 people or no one, or 20, or sometimes more. And then in January this year, I had just done a bunch of festival applications, and so I got booked on a festival. And then I was playing a rock festival up in Camden in London in January, and a friend of mine who I've known for a long time, him and a bunch of our friends came to see me. And at the end of my set, he came up to me and was like, "Hey, Han, if you need someone to play some guitar, or you want someone to help you with anything, like, I love what you're making. I'd love to help if you need it." And because I had been booked onto another festival, I thought, great, this would be so useful. So we started rehearsing together for this festival that we'd been booked on for May. And then I just kind of thought, it's great having Marcus Bout, so why don't we make it like a duo? And he said yes. He said yes. So now we are a duo, and it's so nice to not do it on my own, because a lot of the time, not so much anymore, but when I was back playing like really crappy shows, it's so nice to not be there alone. Because a lot of the time I'd be surrounded by men and bands, and nobody would really talk to me. And I don't know if you've seen, but like, I dress up as an elf, and it's like quite a bit weird and stuff. So everyone thought I was a bit nuts, and so nobody really talks to me. But now I've got my other elf that dresses up, and we're both a bit nuts, and we have a lovely time. So it's very nice.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's only, the more, and adding somebody else to that sort of elf, whatever you want to call it, sort of situation, it just, it becomes that much more, like, acceptable, if you will. It's like, it's no longer just you standing out. Now you got somebody else standing out with you, so it's like less of a off the wall thing.
Definitely, you're so right. Yeah, I think if when you see someone do something wacky alone, you're like, oh, that's they're a bit bold, aren't they? Yeah, you are right.
Yeah. What do you think most often inspires your writing?
Definitely when I am on the tube listening to music, I think that's because when your mind is kind of preoccupied but not, I think that's when your brain kind of relaxes and you kind of suddenly come up with all these creative ideas. But also being on the tube, you've nothing to do other than like read a book or listen to music or something, and you can't look around, you can't make eye contact with anyone. So I have like a notes app and it's just full of writing or lyrics or poetry or something, which maybe one day I'll do something with, but maybe not. But it's it's there all the same. Another time my brain goes like ping is when I'm at gigs and I'm listening to people perform live. I get really inspired then watching people just do their thing, being who they are. I absolutely love that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of a oh god, I don't know what to call it, but there was like a meme trend thing for a while that was like the starter pack of things, and it was like 4 pictures, and it was like for artists it's the notes app or the like voice memos that has like 1,000 things on it that will probably never get touched. Like that's a staple. That's 100% like always there. But and I am very much like I occasionally will go back through and I'm like, oh, let me like move this into like a different folder, and so like I'll revisit it later, and then I never touch the folder again. But I'm also
Exactly.
of the thought that it's like you have to write things that aren't going to be that good, and because there's no way everything in that notes app is gold. There's no shot.
Absolutely.
No one's doing that. So like you have to kind of be able to write like the nonsense and the bullshit to like be able to write the stuff that's actually like worth making it to stage 2. And so whatever it takes to get there, so be it. But you kind of have to work out the bad to get through to the good. And so sometimes
Absolutely.
those notes will sit there for a reason.
Yeah,
So,
collecting dust.
yeah.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. You have to get the mud out to get to the river. Is that a phrase? Either way, it is now.
That's a good way of putting it. Is you have to be able to trudge through to get to where you want to go and get to what you actually want to see. Do you ever like, I don't know how niched down it is that you consume music, but do you think like if you are going through different like phases of listening, whether it's like a favorite band of the time or like even just like exposing yourself to a new genre, do you think that influences the sorts of notes and ideas that you kind of come up with? Do you think that the whatever you're listening to is like filtered through obviously your writing style, but do you think it kind of filters into, and you can kind of see like not even just looking at the time period, but like, oh, this kind of seems like I wrote it when I was like really listening to this?
100%. Like, absolutely. I can tell you what I was listening to by listening to what songs I wrote at what time, which is crazy because some of the songs, most of the songs that I play, I haven't released like live, because we're recording at the moment. We're recording loads of them now, which is very exciting. But I have this really I had like a stint of listening to like really intense heavy metal, and I have this song called Woman, which one thing I really admire about heavy metal is they just take like the songwriting like don'ts and make it the correct thing to do. Like they just take the songwriting, just throw it out the window. They don't care. Like their songs can be like 15 minutes long or 1 minute, and they've got like different tempo changes. There's no particular structure. It's just kind of crazy. And I think that's awesome. And I wrote this song called Woman, and it's kind of a bit like that. Like it definitely breaks a lot of the rules. And you can tell that I was listening to heavy metal at the time. Yeah, definitely filters into what I'm writing at the moment.
That could make for really cool, like, just observation in terms of like you're never going to, that keeps you from falling into the like routine of writing like the same sorts of things over and over. Like you're venturing out into other either ways of writing or structure or even instrumentation and things like that. It's like it's always keeping things fresh, because as much as you don't want to be bouncing like from one direction to completely like the other, it's nice that it's not just, I can't tell the difference between these two songs, like they sound that much similar. So that definitely will help kind of maintain that sort of balance, if you will.
Yeah, definitely. Completely agree.
If you had to create a new genre around your style of music, what would you call it?
How do you mean, like creating genre around
Like,
my song? Oh,
like,
I see what you're saying.
like create a category of one, if you will, like just a genre that would
Sure.
purely be like your music.
Uh, okay, it would probably be like uh grunge indie folk.
Just one word.
I tried to put it into one word.
Change up the spelling a little bit
Yeah.
so it's not too obvious, but like just that.
Yeah. 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 I think so.
What of those different styles do you think you pull to create your sound?
I think lyrics wise, I definitely pull towards folk. Definitely. I think Joni Mitchell is like one of the best lyric person of our time. And I mean, I'll never write like her, but she inspires me so much. Like she can say so much in just like a few words, and I just think that's absolutely amazing. But musicality wise, I take a lot of inspo from like the 90s, like grunge bands, and also like folk bands that were around at that time. I just think they were just trying weird sounds out and just seeing what worked, and I think that's a really fun way to experiment with music.
Yeah, I mean, that's where we get new genres or even just new flavors of genres. Like the stuff that's out now and the stuff that's even like what we're calling pop now is not the same thing pop was 5 years ago, is not the same thing pop was 10 years ago. And rock doesn't at all look the same. Like you think
No,
rock in
yeah,
like the even 80s, 90s, even the early 2000s is different than what it looks like now. So that's, I mean, that just kind of is the natural cycle of things. But that's where it kind of leads to, we will never really run out of new music. We will never really run out of these new ideas. Those things just keep coming. Yeah.
it's really exciting actually. I think the music is going to sound absolutely bonkers in about 5 years, and I'm so here for it. I'm ready.
We're gonna get some like EDM and like country crossover and stuff like that. Like shit's just gonna go wild.
Yeah, I'm ready. Strap in.
Is there a song that you've written that you think best embodies who you are as an artist? In terms of like a sampling of the rest of your catalog, like trying to, one song to showcase everything as best as you can?
Sure. Probably at the moment, Annabella, which is one we released in August.
As the time goes by, you stand with your hand in mine. We're two lovebirds singing loud. I love you, I love you, I love you. There's hope in this light. There's guidance by your side. A mystery, but we're intertwined. Annabella, you're my rose, you're my light.
That's probably, yeah. We've got two versions. Because I when I was recording it in my room, I hadn't looked at it in a while, and then I opened it again and I accidentally muted all the instrumentation, and then I hit play and it's just got all my vocals and the harmonies on, and I was like, whoa, this sounds amazing. So I released two versions, one with just the vocals and one with everything on it, because I just thought it sounded really, really beautiful. So yeah, check that out. Shameless plug.
That's the whole point of the question, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
That's really cool. It wasn't even like you like remade it, because when you started saying that you were like opened it back up, I thought you were gonna be like, I didn't really like how it sounded, but so I remade the whole thing. But you just essentially took half of it out and then just left what was there, which is really cool. Now that I know that, I'll have to go back and listen. I love stuff like that. Like I love alternate versions of things and like acoustic and stuff like that. So it's always really cool to see how you can reinvent a song, even if it's your own. Plus I love a good like stripped down version of anything. So
who doesn't? It's
I mean, that's just where the heart of it lives. You know, you can dress it up all you want, but like at its core, that is it. It's all it takes.
Yeah.
Do you think that is as much a accurate sort of vibe of what you've done so far, as well as what is yet to come? Because you said you're working on like recording some newer stuff. Do you think that is also sort of at least somewhat of an indicator of what's yet to come?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I only because the next song that we're putting out is like a really kind of like an indie banger, like a pop banger.
Mm-hmm.
So the other music I put out is like really chill. So I think similar, like the guitars will sound similar but just a lot faster and a lot punkier. But the song is, but I think in terms of like the production and stuff, I think probably yes, but the songs upcoming are like a bit more fun, so we'll see.
Always good to put a new flavor on things. No harm, no foul.
Yeah, you got to.
Yeah,
got to keep them guessing.
You gotta have. You can't be chill all the time. Nobody's chill all the time.
Absolutely. We're all just trying to like survive. So why not just mix it up?
100%. If you had to pick 2 or 3 artists that you think your music is like a combination of, who would it be?
Aldous Harding and Mazzy Star.
Do you have a third, or,
Yeah.
or is it just those? Is it just
No, I just think those two put together, and maybe like, yeah, I think just those two, because it's kind of like sleepy vocals with like nice guitars, maybe Hayley Hendrix in some of them. I don't know, something like that.
is there like certain elements from, because like sometimes I will get the answer of the question and it's like, oh, like this from this person, this from that person, and then this from the third. And it's sort of like piecing together a puzzle. Like you said earlier, like how you like write more folky, but like you take it and produce it in more of like an indie rock kind of way. Is it like that where it's like pieces of each of those two? Or is it just kind of like, no, those are two are like very much like if you put us in a lineup, we're sitting on the same playlist?
We're probably sitting on the same playlist, but I didn't really realize that until a couple months ago, because my I asked my housemates and my friends, I was like, oh, what artists do you think, Gecko and the Bee sound like? And they all came back with Mazzy Star and Aldous Harding, like all of them. So I was like, oh, okay. I hadn't even really I actually hadn't made the connection. And then I was been re-listening to those two artists again, and I was like, oh, they're so right. Like I hadn't even, that's so funny. I hadn't even made the connection.
It is always interesting because you do, especially as you like fall more and more into what you consider to be your own sound, you almost like consume music, at least that like somewhat aligns with what you're doing, a little bit differently, because you're looking at it kind of through the lens of not necessarily comparison, but like putting us in the same conversation. And so you start to discover, like, even if it's somebody that you've been listening to for a while, it's like after you've kind of like, even especially like after you've like put out a project, it's like, I'm kind of seeing some things here that remind me of something I've done, and stuff like that is always interesting to see how it's really all connected. Like you could really connect anything to what you're doing in some way, shape, or form, but to see the ones that are like very much on that wavelength is often, honestly, I think reassuring in a way of like, okay, I'm doing something that people are actually like gonna care about, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Not like so out the box that people won't even know what they're listening to.
Wait, like, yeah, like I can actually like market this in some way. I can just throw their name like with
Yeah.
it, and it's like, hey, you like this guy? Like, we're good, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. You're so right.
What is an outside passion of yours that you think impacts who you are as an artist?
I think something that I think I always knew, but I didn't realize was making an impact, but it has made an impact, is I've always been a person who loves being outside and really love being in nature and just kind of like really just letting myself go. I am a country person, so that kind of makes sense, right? But I realized that the music that I'm making makes me feel like I'm in the countryside, or I've got really into gardening. I'm very fortunate in London that I have a garden. So I've been like gardening all summer and I'm obsessed. I can't believe I've discovered gardening. But I feel like my music feels like something I could garden to. And I think I know it's, it's so funny, but I think that's what it feels like for me.
That's definitely a first in terms of the kinds of answers that I've gotten, but being in that like folk space makes sense. Like folk, you think outside in the nature-y, and so that completely aligns, but certainly is a first.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so funny.
I write the kind of music that I can garden to. Never heard that one before,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
use it to your like, if nobody's saying it, use it. Somebody like that, you've got your target
Absolutely.
audience right there. People that garden, you're set.
You're so right.
Just
Yeah. If you like gardening, whack this on.
just just the instead of like, like artists have their like compilation playlists of like all of their music and stuff, yours should just be like music to garden too.
Totally, totally. And it's so funny because I should have seen it sooner, because in lockdown, one of my friends, Katie, she always grows tomatoes, and she would send me daily videos of her watering her tomatoes with like my music on. So I should have seen it sooner, really.
It's always been there. It's been at the
Always
root
been
of it.
there.
No pun intended.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, great. I
That's
love
really
that.
funny. That's perfect though. No, use that is a little marketing weapon to keep in your arsenal for sure. That you're reaching a target market that we didn't know yet existed.
It's true. It's so true.
Well, I wonder if that's going to bleed into the next question. What is the ideal listening scenario for someone to consume your music in?
I think late night on a Sunday, if you're like cooking some food or you're just chilling on your own, smoking a cig, or gardening or taking a walk in a forest. I think it's very much more introspective. I mean, you can put it on in like a group environment, but I think because it's quite lyric heavy, I think it's more of like a solo venture than a group venture.
That
At
I
the
mean,
moment anyway.
oh well, yeah. Who knows what's to come with the more upbeat stuff? Then that might be the group venture. It's like, you have that for like, you're like, okay, we're socializing, and then it's like everybody leaves, and it's like you switch back to the other stuff.
Yeah.
That's
Ooh.
the picture we're painting here.
It is the picture
That's
we're
the journey.
painting.
instead of working like forward in the catalog, you just work backwards. You work from the like more upbeat stuff down into like the chill stuff
Yeah,
when you're like
perfect.
at your chilling moment.
Definitely.
What is it that you think sets you apart from other independent artists?
I think something that sets us apart is we're not very serious people, and we're doing, I mean, everyone does it because they love it, and we do it because we love it, but our main goal is like to just have as much fun as possible, and just really enjoy it, and not, I mean, obviously like take it seriously, but I think you got to have the fun, and I think that's why we dress up when we're on stage, and we're being really silly up there. I always get the audience to like tell me jokes, and I tell jokes back, and it's like a whole thing. And I think that's something that people really, really enjoy when they come to see a live show or talk to one of us, is they just realize that we just love being really silly and having a great time. I think that's something that's good.
Yeah, I mean, that's ultimately what, I mean, regardless of whether it's upbeat and like rave music, or it's like the complete opposite end of the spectrum, and it's like that sad shit that just kind of want to makes you cry, all of it serves its purpose, and it's a connecting thing, whether it's, like we're listening to this together and sort of sharing that experience, or I'm listening to something by myself and connecting with whoever it is that wrote it. It's that sort of interactive, whether it's directly that way or not, sort of experience. And you can't take yourself too seriously. You just can't. because like that, like that kind of attributes to also what you were talking about earlier with like putting it out and just saying, screw it. Like whoever likes it will like it and whoever doesn't won't. You know, you only get a lot of these opportunities a certain amount of the time. So do what you can with it and don't take it too seriously.
Yeah. And I think for a long time, when I was first starting out, I used to take it too seriously, and be very precious. And I used to have like very severe performance anxiety, but I just knew that I wanted to do it. So I just pushed myself through it. I played some absolutely dreadful shows, but that doesn't matter. It's fine. But something that helped me get over that is I realized I'm doing it because I love it and I find it really fun. So why shouldn't I have as much fun as possible while doing it? Mm-hmm. And that helped me so much get over my anxiety, being on stage and putting music out there. And I've just refound my love again. And as corny as it sounds, like the child in me is like so happy that I'm thinking about it that way, because I think that's really important to the core of who I am as a person. So there you go. That's my nugget of wisdom for you.
No, I totally get where you're coming from with that. And I think that's very similar to a conversation I had last week. It's, you know, the things that we think are so daunting or so serious or so like, you know, overwhelming in whatever way, shape, or form it comes today are going to be nothing but a like blip in our memories 5 years from now. Like I'm sure we've all experienced like in school, like going through like whether it's like drama with friends or like, you know, relationships and stuff like that. And it's like, it seems like this like end of the world, like huge deal at the time because you're like right in there and living it. And it's like 5 years later, you're like, did that really matter that much? Like, you know, acknowledge the experience 100%. Like, don't just like completely dismiss it and go through like nothing matters. But if you think about it in the grand scheme of things, like one specific moment and experience like that isn't going to make or break anything. Like nothing is that serious where it's like make or break unless it's like life or death, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree with you. I do that when people annoy me. I think, am I going to care about this in a year? And 99% of the time, the answer is no. And if it's no, then I just let it go. If it's yes, then I will like be like, hey, you pissed me off. Like, let's sort it out. But it's it's very helpful to think that way, I think.
Yeah, especially with like that like with again circling back to putting it out and just doing the thing. It's like, you know, they always say people regret the things they didn't do rather than the things they did do. Do it, try it out, see what happens. If it flops, okay, do it again if you want to, you know, that do with it what you will. But like that's why the perfectionist thing is just not a thing that we can do. Is like it just has to be done at some point. Just put it out. If it's good enough, somebody will like it. Just a matter of whether you find them or not, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Thank you. What impact do you want to have with your music and with your artistry?
The impact I would like to make is, so originally I started making music as a way to like calm my anxiety, and I think that was the original goal of it, was to just like clear, like try to quieten my mind. But I think so maybe if it helps someone quieten their mind, that's great. But I think the impact I'd like to have, I want people to be able to talk about their feelings more, I think. And I think my music is quite emotional in the way that the feeling is. So I think that's something I would like people to take from it.
I am on that same wavelength. It's like, for me, music became just an outlet. So a little bit like on that same wavelength of just like, there are things here that don't need to be staying here. So let's just get it out for the time being. And, that's, and, talk about the things. It's all you got to just let it, if it exists, if you let it exist in a space outside of you, it's taking up less space inside of you. You're like extending
Absolutely.
it and allowing it to exist beyond just your, like, it's just, even if you like just have to get like that random little thing that's been bothering you all day off your chest. It's like the second you say it to someone else and it's in their ears, it's like suddenly it's not as big of a deal or as a problem, and it's not pissing me off to my core anymore. It's just, that's all it is. So just do the thing. Moral of today's episode is just do the thing.
Just do the thing.
whatever the thing is, do the thing.
Do the thing.
Yeah,
that's it.
That's all it is.
Yeah, I think that's good though, because I remember playing an open mic up in Camden, and I have as most people do when they're 23, I don't know how old you are, but my 23 was like an emotional hellscape. So I think it is for a lot of people. And I wrote quite a lot of like good but like sad songs during that time. And I remember playing one of them at this open mic, and this girl came up to me at the end and she was just crying, and she was like, oh my gosh, that song's really like touched me. And that song was like quite a personal song, and I didn't expect it to ever hit anyone or anyone to really understand it. But there you go, like people relate to stuff without you even realizing. And I was shocked when I saw someone crying at one of my songs. I remember that. I don't think I'll ever forget that moment. That was really, really powerful.
No, that's a very interesting time. I don't know what the timeline is in the UK as far as like school, because I know you guys call it uni and we call it college. But 23, I'm 23 right now. And so like I'm in my like post college or post uni, I guess, period. And it's just like I did the same thing that you did and wrote a lot of emotional music at that time. And it's just like, it's just a very interesting time, because you go from like everything that you've ever known to like everything that you've been told is like what's coming next. But it's like one of those things that you don't really know until you're there. And so then it's like, how do I deal with this being a completely different universe than what I've been existing in for the last like 20 some years?
Yeah, that is the exact time that I was referring to. That's so funny.
I am in the boat that you are in then. I'm just a few, however many years behind you on the timeline. That's all.
Yeah. That's all. Just hang on.
Just full steam ahead.
Yeah, full steam ahead.
I think that brings us to the last question that I always like to ask, which is, why music?
Because music is therapy, and we all need therapy. That's why. It's short answer. That's it. Like it just, like, it's so relatable. It helps so many people, and I just think there's so people, like, I haven't even written my best song yet. You haven't even written your best song yet, and that's so exciting to me. The idea of the possibility, and yeah, I just, the future is exciting. I just don't know what's going to happen. Anything can happen.
Yeah, it's to find something that you want to stick to years and years from now, that you want to keep striving for your best, even though you will probably never reach it. Like you said, like, we haven't written the best that's yet to come yet. and unless, you know, you just decide tomorrow you're quitting, but um that's not the point. You know, we to keep striving for that, but to enjoy the journey along the way is what's like really cool about passions in general. But like I feel like music specifically is, it's like I feel like anything that's like on a creative level, and this could be biased, like anything that's like a creative like sort of passion, to keep kind of progressing that forward is always really interesting, because we look at achieving certain goals or results in a more finite and structured way, but creativity operates so much differently than that. And so it's sometimes hard to see it in that way and hard to want to push yourself to move forward. But knowing that ultimately what's going to result is something better than what you've done so far is that sort of curiosity that is just enough to kind of push you to actually do the thing and strive for whatever's next.
Definitely. And I remember when I first moved to London, I remember hearing this story or quote I think someone sent me, and it was like, life is like you're a rock being thrown into a pond. Everyone's worried about how big of a splash they're going to make, and they forget to enjoy like being in the air. And I just think that's so true. Like we need to enjoy the free fall rather than worrying about how big of the splash we're going to make is. Like we'll get there eventually and that's fine, but enjoy the here and now, like live slowly, you know, enjoy where you are, even if you haven't got a job or your skin, like you've got people around you who love and care about you. So just you're going to be fine.
Yeah, it's important to enjoy the journey no matter where the destination lies.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, and like again, throwing it into the like like filtering it into like the music world, it's like to be able to, like, music is like nothing else. Like it's a form of art, but you can't really even compare it to any of those forms of art, because it's just it's something that is incomparable to really anything else. The way it can have impact, the way it can like alter things, like it's just the weight that it carries is indescribable, regardless of what kind of, like, any kind of music can resonate with you in such a crazy way. And it's really interesting to see what comes of that. And then to, you know, look at it in the long haul, it's like, yeah, you can strive to do whatever, but all the shit that you're going to make along the way is like crazy.
Yeah. And that's what I'm so excited about. I mean, I never thought I would have done half of the things that I would have done 5 years ago. Like I'm so grateful for all the opportunities that I've had and where I am now, and you know, things that will happen in 2024. Like I'm so excited and so grateful for anything that happens. So bring it on, I say.
Yeah.
Bring it on.
Yeah, exactly. No, that, yeah, that's the right way to look at it. Is it's just who, because you know, like you just said, would you really have ever expected to be where you are right now? I wouldn't. You said you wouldn't. Like, we can only put so much weight on that expectation for the future too. So it's like, just enjoy the journey to wherever the heck the destination is. Like, just ride along, do what you please. Don't worry about necessarily where it's heading. Just know that when you find it and get there, you'll know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's all there is to it.
Yeah, just do it.
Yeah, just do it. Just do the thing.
Just do the thing.
Just do the thing. That's all it is.
Do the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. All this time just to really say, just do the thing.
Just do the thing.
Just do the thing. Um, with that, I think that brings us to the end of this episode of the Why Music podcast. Check back again next week for another conversation with another independent artist. Thanks for listening.